Welcome back everyone to Welstopia, where today we will have the final tour of our base because Season 3 of Welstopia is coming to an end. We will be resetting the server when 1.13 gets released, and we're all excited about that. And it'll be nice to have a new build now, especially since the temple here is now complete. Here is our entrance. Two spruces flanking the entrance. Now, this cat here, I don't know where the cat came from. I have my suspicions that one of the other members left it here after she finished up all of her builds, because I suggested that she get a cat for her base because she was doing a Skyrim based base from Winterhold, and I thought it'd be nice to have something to represent the Khajiit in there. So here's the top floor. We have this pyramid with the beacon under it. So this is the center of my base. We have all sorts of auxiliary rooms down around here. The library with, of course, our own librarian in there. We have a smeltery, we have a potions room where we can make all sorts of potions. I managed to get every single potion in here made except harming, which I believe wouldn't have been too difficult to do. I just wasn't interested in creating one. And the other one was leaping. A, I'm not too interested in leaping, and B, I never found a rabbit's foot, so I never really pursued too much of rabbit's foot seriously. Here's a map of the base, and as you can see, very little of it is developed because I spent most of my time underground, and maps don't show you what's going on underground. And we come down into the dungeon. The dungeon sections are modeled after the classic Dungeons and Dragons module, the Temple of Elemental Evil. I call this the Temple of Elemental Pine. This back area isn't part of what we have in the classic module, but are a couple of extra rooms, such as here we have our chorus fruit farm. And this is my tree farm, which is nice and high, and I can do trees pretty high up. I do double those quad spruce, the mega spruces, because this is the Temple of Elemental Pine, so being able to do a mega spruce is very, very important in there. And we have all along here various barracks and like those. I turned this into storage room, which seems to be what was used in the original temple, though that was all broken up in the original version. And we come along here, and occasionally we also have some farms like this melon farm and the like. Really didn't do too much in there. That was created in hopes of maybe using it for some villager trading or something like that, and I never got around to doing all that much villager trading. I did do a bit. I believe I've got something like 300 village trades in there, but the more serious ones have tens of thousands. And here, this is my dye room where I have dyes of pretty much all the colors. I think I managed to get at least some of every color, though some like light blue I don't really have all that much. Lapis, of course, whatever I managed to dig out of the ground. I made sure I got at least a little bit of every single color. The one I have the most of will of course be bone meal, so it's easily gotten. Light gray, because I think with light gray you need to get specific stuff for that. And where's black? Pink, gray, black. Ah, here, black is down here. I did manage to get a stack of ink sacks throughout the time, but since I'm underground and all that stuff, I rarely was getting ink sacks. Now I did have this room in order to grow the 4 flowers that you can just auto renew by using bone meal. And cocoa beans is very easily gotten, as you can see here. It has this entire room for cocoa beans and this room for green, and I could just cook up the cactus right there. So that's my dye room. Now down here I have the triple room. The triple room is a room where we have 3 consecutive rooms. One's a big circle, the second one was a smaller circle, and the third one was an even smaller circle. It's just what it is in the original mod. I can't remember what exactly they used it for. But what I decided to do was to make them into tiny little micro farms here. One of them has pumpkins. Second one had sugar cane. And then third one, a little chicken egg farm. And that way, whenever I needed it, I could get some extra pumpkin pie. And that's what kept me fed all throughout probably the last 2/3 of the series, is all the pumpkin pie from eating that. Now while I had the generic storage room earlier, this is to be a stone storage room. And if I ever needed a build that needed a great deal of smooth stone, this is where I would go. Originally it was planned to be a mixture of cobble and smooth stone in here, but in the end a lot more smooth stone was put here than cobble. So obviously I had a great deal with silk touch going on there. And inside here we had, this was to be wool, but very little of it ever made here. So therefore, virtually nothing in the textiles room. And finally, this is just a bit of a tomb, which is a sarcophagus area that we have in the original dungeon. It's all very dark, of course, so I have it slabbed down so that nothing will spawn in here. And this is just raw dungeon. I figure a secret area going out of a sarcophagus room is pretty much perfect for going off into uncharted territory in the dungeon. There you go. And finally, we will proceed down this way, where we come into where we have the Earth Temple with a horseshoe shape and the Earth Temple here. We have sandstone walls because that's what it calls for in the original module. Now they don't call for the cows in here. I just thought if we have an earth floor and we have all of this, and of course I didn't want mobs spawning all over the place in here, I thought let's light it up and turn it into a cow farm. This is a nice large area with an earth theme. The pyramid is inspired by the original module. And I also eventually added the clerics in here. And for the clerics, I've got 3 cleric type villagers, all with their various trades. I don't think any of these had any decent glowstone trades, because that's what I was looking for in all the clerics I got, to eventually get a good glowstone trade. I have one in the fire temple. But I did trade with all of these in order to see what kind they had, and I think all these had an emerald for a glowstone, which of course is a pretty bad trade to have. In addition to this, I also had 1 villager of an appropriate color for each of these. In this case, we have a farmer. A farmer is fitting both because we've got cows here and because brown coat, and that's the color that I use when I use banners and the like to represent the Earth Temple. So brown color plus being a farmer, perfect for this particular area. So that is the Earth Temple. Now down on this way, we have a little bit of a dungeon area. And over here, this was to be a armory at one point, and I do have some bows here and some arrows and a few weapons, but I never did seriously use this as armory. But here, this is to protect the armor, because if anyone approaches, you'll see that we've got the pit, and over there is a trap. Oh, it shoots arrows. So we have a, whatever you call those, we have dispensers, and we have the other ones. So this thing shoots whenever you turn on there, and that's an homage to the D&D version of the Temple of Elemental Evil, where they have an area known as the Gatling, well, what I call the Gatling Ballista, because you go there, the guards start firing this ballista there that keeps on firing, and it's killed me so many times that I just had to have something there that was a nod to that. And that goes all around here. This is my main sleeping area, and that is the first level of the dungeon. Now, one place where you go down to the second level is down here. There is also a second level on near the Earth Temple, and this goes down into the second floor. We do have a bunch of twisting corridors all about this way, where nothing really happens there. The best thing, all the good stuff is down this way. We have this, well, it's gold here. It's supposed to be bronze in the original module. It has this corridor here that leads to the other three temples. Over here we have the water temple. Here is the foyer to that. And here we are with our water room. We have a green coat, Nitwit, for our high priest for this particular one. And the slime block there is a nod to the living pool that you have in the original module, which is represented by a gelatinous cube in the DDO version. So therefore a slime block, or triple slime block that I have over here, was perfect for that particular role. And here are the sleeping quarters, so therefore I just put a bed there. I didn't go through any details in trying to decorate this. But this is the water temple. On the other side here, we have the fire temple. Just why you see it suddenly turn into granite. And over here we have the clerics that I could trade with. This one had, that one had 2, which isn't too bad. Of course, he had that 39 flesh trade there. See, that was 38. So we had 3 here. So this is what I tended to trade with, because we had the 3 glowstone trade there, and I used quite a bit of glowstone in some of the parts of this. Here we had a weaponsmith that I'm not too sure I really used all that much. Didn't exactly have the greatest weapon trades in here. Smite 1, for example. And we had this huge fire. I thought that this huge fire pit would prove to be a hazard, maybe. Of course, I did cover it with glass in hopes of keeping the villagers alive, and apparently it was very successful in doing that, because I did not lose any villagers in this particular room. Now, what was an unexpected hazard was in here. This is the air temple. So it's all nice and bright and open. And something in here must have killed all of the villagers because it's very, very well lit up. I can't see how anything could spawn in here. I did have fences around here originally. I just never really used them in my head. Opened them all up after I lost the villagers. Actually, let's be symmetrical and take out this one also. So I did get rid of all the fences here. But that was only after all the villagers had died. I don't know what killed them. I just know I came here one day, there were no villagers, and I suppose they got stuck on all the end rods or something like that. And there's apparently a cave nearby because I hear a zombie somewhere around, even though it's been a long time since I've heard one actually in the corridors or anything like that. Let me not worry about those. Oh yeah, for some reason I brought myself back to the first floor, which was not my intention. Yeah, so this does show you though the other way down, which I talked about earlier. Of course, the other way down is from the air temple. So let's go to the side. And this is the great ballroom. And you can see here we have glowstone all over the place used here. And we have another set of twisty corridors all to the side where you can go, eventually leading to things like the skeleton farm and all that. We're not going to worry about the skeleton farm and all that, but we will worry about this great room of mushrooms, the audience chamber being up here, filled with puzzle, and that all looks nice and beautiful, going very well with spruce, which I guess is appropriate. And the one thing about this particular area is it's right on top of a slime chunk. I don't know if there's anything I could have done about that because I like the idea of having mushrooms here since there are mushrooms and other types of fungus all throughout here in the original module, and I couldn't just ignore that possibility. So therefore, I had to have something where mushrooms would grow when it was well lit. And of course, that meant either mycelium or podzol, and when you live in a area that I do here, I chose podzol. Actually, I did originally have mycelium simply because it was easier to get mycelium, since you could just put down dirt and then put a couple of blocks of mycelium. It spreads all over the place. It was super ugly, and I eventually changed it with podzol since I live under a mega taiga. That wasn't all that difficult to do. Though the mycelium did go well with this room here, where we have the purple room with a little bit of green and purple room. That was inspired by the module. And this room was originally very, very dark and evil, and that there was a symbol down here with each point of the star representing a color. And because we had each color of the rainbow represented in there, I thought, well then, let's just make it into a rainbow room. So I have this nice, happy rainbow room here, which is very, very different from what you had in the original module, since the boss of the entire dungeon is met right in that room. So it was very, very nasty. Now down here, we have the room that leads you to the various elemental nodes. So this is nice and dark, very dark floor. I think it's black concrete powder I have there with the pads, connecting pads made from obsidian. When obsidian is the light color that you're using, you know you have a dark area. And the last things I was doing were the various nodes. So this is the air node, and each of these has a area that you can get to little bit of puzzle towards a diamond block. So here's the treasure, is the diamond block. In order to get to it, you need to get up into the cloud that's over there. Now, I used the new texture pack for most of the building during the season, especially the latter parts. So therefore, the polished diorite, I think, looks really, really nice in that texture pack, which is why I went with that a lot. So if you tried coming in here after the world download and you have the old texture pack, it might not look as good. Now down here, we have this nether fortress-like area, and of course this for the nether. Very, very nether-like. And of course, a couple of vein of the quartz here, and the glowstone, and we can't have it complete without lava. So you can see here, we have an accessible diamond block, but it is sitting right on top of the lava. So always a little bit of a puzzle related to what you do there. Now, of course, these aren't really difficult ones to do if you have all the tools of a typical Minecrafter. Let's do water next. And here, obviously, the water node, since we are underwater here. A little bit of place where you can breathe here. So the diamond block is just within the water. Just the fact that you are all underwater here is the tricky thing here. Up we go. Okay, good. And we return up. And that leaves Earth, which is obviously using Earth on the way down, and I use a great deal of stone brick here, jack-o'-lanterns to light the way, and this is a maze. And of course the treasure is at the end of the maze. So those are the 4 nodes. Let's head back upstairs to the Greater Temple, which is down in this direction. We close that. That leads to outer parts of the dungeon and things like the spider spawner and the like. Now down here we have our meditation runes for each of the elements, so that you can have a little meditation on your appropriate element. And then down into the Greater Temple, it is roughly shaped like a spruce tree, and we have side passages leading to small builds to each of the elements. We have a little bit of farm for earth. We have a fountain for water, and there's a duplicate on the other side. We have this little, whatever you call this contraption, for air. So a little bit of abstract art is how I put that there. And then a little bulk smelter for fire. And then that leads finally into the great tree, the temple of the elemental pine, and there is the elemental pine itself, which stands directly under the beacon that we saw at the very beginning. Those are all the main builds. Down this way we have a zombie spawner, just a typical standard XP farm. Nothing too spectacular in that matter. And down here is a spider spawner. This is even a simpler spawner because you just flip that switch, knock out the torches, flip the switch, and then you get spiders coming up. And I use this for combat practice more than anything else. There's a look at the sacred pine. And then we come all the way up here, and we are back up to the top, and we've gone full circle. And the last thing to show here then, of course, is a sheep farm. Now, at first I had a lot of trouble getting sheep here. I do live in a mega taiga, and wolves, of course, have a habit of going after sheep. So therefore, it took me a long time to find any sheep anywhere on the island, but I did eventually find a couple, bring them here, bred them up, and I have sheep of all the various colors. I have another half of the farm elsewhere. So now I have all colors represented. And of course, I've got a nether portal. So let's take a quick look at what I did for the nether. There you go. I actually made a nether hub this year, which is something I had never built in the past. And of course, I went with the elemental theme. I have this for air, and this for water. Since you can't really get water in the nether, I just have this green glass with the prismarine lanterns there. We've got this for the earth, so I used a wood pyramid there, and then of course fire. That's very easily achievable in the nether. And then each of the directions going. The first direction I built up was east, because this is the direction I came from, to Stina Rose's place. And then to the south, I believe that eventually leads you into the temple. Yes, one of those desert temples. To the west, we have a desert village. I never really did anything with that desert village. And then finally, we have here to the north end, which goes to Proteus's base. I never really went there. I went there a couple times because that is the way to the nearest end portal. So I went there a couple of times when I wanted to go into the end, but I very, very rarely head into the end. So it's a very underutilized section. And that is the end of this tour. So thank you everyone for watching Season 3 of Welstopia. I had a great deal of fun doing my rendition of the Temple of Elemental Evil / Temple of Elemental Pine. And I look forward to a new build next season, where I'll be taking some inspiration from another Dungeons & Dragons module. And we'll see that when we return next season for Pineleaf Plays Minecraft Welstopia.